Our mission is, our vision is that we like to advance people one learner at a time. So there's personalized learning. We do this by improving the training impact that training providers make. We use technology, we use content, we use consultancy, we use neuroscience, latest insights in how people learn. And we do this for training providers. We work a lot with associations as well, because associations are also training providers quite often. So those are our markets and who we do it for. Our principles is that we think training is a people business, and this is getting more and more interesting in the conversation about AI. Of course, using technology for scale, for consistency, for personalization, you need to use it where it adds the most value. So those are some of our key principles within it. Practically, what kind of products do we provide? We are a strategic partner of a company called A New Spring, Dutch company that helps training providers design, create, deliver really impactful training. And Inmissio SIP, which enables training companies to measure, to prove what impact they make. So data driven, that's a big thing for us, and we think for training providers as well. We'll talk about that further because we're talking about creating value today. And of course, we have a method for this where we help companies to plan, to build, to grow, and to scale their offerings. So that's really what we're all about. I'm going to stop there. This was less than 4 minutes, I'm sure.
Okay, well, Jan, that was very impressive and very impactful. Thank you very much for that. And I think today, as we talk about, we talk about training. For me, the business of training is about people. And what I'd love to do today is have the opportunity to introduce two very special guests for ourselves. Laura, could I perhaps ask you to provide a bit of an insight to the world of Laura, please?
The world of Laura, crazy at the moment, full of events. Yeah, hi everyone. It's really great to meet you. I'm Laura Overton. I've been working in the field of learning and development for over 30 years now. A lot of it on the supply side of the equation of great learning and development, and with a lot of technology involved. But probably most people know me for the last 20 years, where I've been actively involved in doing independent research into what works. My red thread through all of that has always been about how can we as learning professionals create better value. And I have researched that, looked at that from so many different angles. And I think as providers, we've got such an important role to play. Oh, and I can also add that I'm not just a researcher, but an author now, because everyone thinks I've written a book. I've written about 70 research reports that people have referenced over the years. But my first book is coming out in beginning of October. And there's a whole chapter looking at partnerships between sort of vendors and suppliers, all with a view of creating value. So this is so up my street. Oh, and another day job I have is to be able to co-chair the amazing Business of Training conference as well. So yeah, slightly crazy, Paul, right now.
Do you know what? I love crazy. And just to prove your editorial element to it, I've just put a link in there to some of the resources. So hopefully people will be able to digest that at another point in time. So thank you very much for that crazy world of Lorraine. Could I ask you to perhaps just give a little insight to your world, please? It'd be really appreciated.
Sure, thank you very much. My name is Lorraine Taylor, and similar to Laura, I've done not quite 30 years, but about 26, 27 years in my career in learning and development. And I've covered industries from media, a little known company called the Walt Disney Company, retail, Marks and Spencer, and then the majority of my career is in financial services, and again both on the vendor side and also in-house. And I've pretty much done every role from HR and training administrator all the way through to chief learning officer. So I've got a lot of experience in terms of working with internal stakeholders and external stakeholders and clients, trying to work out, if you're going to invest in some learning, what is it that you want to invest in and what do you expect to get? What will you see that's different? What will people be thinking differently? And how will it impact the business? And for me, that's what value is all about. I'm currently working my own business, working with clients, and that's one of the first questions I ask them is why? What is it that you want to be doing, and why do you want to be doing it? And unless we get a solid answer to that, it's probably not worth progressing.
No, perfect. And I do like some of the stuff that you've actually got on your LinkedIn profile. Excuse me, simple, strategic, and effective, and elements. And really, as we talk about today, it's about that deliver that real value to customers and stakeholders as well. So that was a good read in some respects. So I think what we look at in the world of that we are is about as you said. The why question in some respects. And Jan, I don't know if I could rely on your technical skill sets, perhaps just to put a poll out there, and perhaps if you want to give a little bit of background to the poll question, just to set the scene for us, please, Jan.
Difficult questions. Okay, yeah, let's see who we have in the room today. So I'm going to launch this poll. So there is two questions that we have in this one. Now, the first one is, what is influencing your training business? Is it, and you can answer multiple options. Is it economic uncertainty? Government is giving out lots of subsidies, so maybe it's that. That would be a positive one. Or is it actually the negative side, lack of government support? Is it AI, customer demand? People are answering questions. Thank you very much. There's a second question to this. What is your forecast for the year? Do you think that your business is growing, stable, shrinking maybe? We overlay this actually with, because we're working also with the Federation of Small Businesses, and we've seen what small, mid-sized businesses are answering as confidence in the future. Actually, for smaller businesses, we found that last time this is Q2, the sentiment was quite negative. So what I see here is actually growth and stable. So this is a very different poll outcome than what the FSB might see. So I'm very happy with that the training industry is looking very positive to the future. Let's see. People have been answering. More people who want to answer. Otherwise, I'm going to end the poll. 3, 2, 1. Okay. And let's share those results. What can you see? What, Paul? Can you confirm that you can see the results?
I can see the results indeed. Yep. Yes.
So, question number 1. People see economic uncertainty, lack of government support, customer demand, and AI. Actually, customer demand seems to be biggest influencer. Question for the chat. Is that customer demand as positive or negative? Although if I overlay that with the second question, people see growth more than anything else, or stable. But certainly not going shrinking business. So can I conclude that customer demand is therefore positive? And we have a second question, which I'm going to launch in a sec. Practical issues. So what kind of practical issues do you encounter in training business? Is it data, partnerships with maybe customers or other parties, new developments, innovation that is influencing, finding new customers, competition? What are the issues that you see? I'm going to wait a little bit. We have a few people answered. Please participate. Excellent. See lots of answers coming through. Thank you very much. Let's another 5 seconds or so. I'm sure the 5 seconds have passed. So I'm going to close the poll. and share the results as well. Assuming you can see this, biggest thing that is seen as issue is finding new customers. And there's a good spread of answers here. Data, partnerships, new developments, collaboration, innovation. Not so much on the competition side, yeah? But that's so that's a good measuring the temperature of what we feel in the room. Lorraine, what do you think of this when you see this?
I'm very interested to hear a little bit more. I think from my perspective, if we go back to the first poll, I was intrigued that customer demand was so high, actually, given what's happening in some of the conversations I'm having with clients at the moment. Whilst it's high, I think there have been other factors that maybe came lower in this poll that I'm having more and more conversations on. Certainly, I mean, those two letters that we can't stop hearing about. I don't think I've had I don't think there's been any conversation in the last 3 or 4 months where they haven't come up, AI hasn't come up. And certainly as well, economic uncertainty, I think, has had a huge impact. So I'll be intrigued to hear a little bit more on that side, definitely. And then in terms of the practical impacts, for me, they were quite even there. And again, it would be good to hear a little bit more on that. I certainly think data plays a big role as well. So it'd be good to find out a little bit more on that. In my view.
And Laura, what do you distill from this?
I distill that you've got a room for really good training providers here. What's really exciting, and I've seen this so much in the research, that good follows good, success follows success. If you've got a good relationship with your clients, you're going to get more business with your clients. If you've got good partnerships, you're going to be able to do that. If you're already thinking about innovation, then you're going to be more open to innovation. So for me, it's interesting here about the finding new customers as being one of the challenges. And how do you get noticed by other customers? Because if you look at some of the data outside of the world of work, there's a lot of conversations around at the moment that learning development professionals themselves are under quite a lot of threat. There's been so many really senior, good, business-oriented learning leaders who are on the job marketplace at the moment. There's research from Blue Eskimo, I think, released yesterday on I saw it yesterday on LinkedIn, whenever it was released, I don't know, about the fact that actually, there's a lot more learning professionals on the market than there are jobs. So I recognize that, finding new customers when our new customers' jobs themselves are under threat is quite there's an uncertainty there. And I think our good relationships with customers lead to their success, which also increases our partnerships there. And Stuart, I know that, that's obviously your experience as well. But I think we are going to be needing to rethink how we articulate our value proposition to a wider audience, particular audience who themselves aren't facing the same stability that we are, or our existing customers are. So challenge is, how do we keep our existing customers and make sure they keep their jobs by doing an amazing job with them? But also, how do we attract others who are still in work but need to be able to drive better value? It sounds to me as though this room is got perfectly positioned to come up with some great answers. So please share with each other as well in the chat, because you guys clearly know what you're doing, and we want to learn from you.
And Laura, one thing I was thinking about as well with inside this discussion today, the point about finding new customers, and from a provider's perspective, do you see that it's more of the same, or do you think it's about being a little bit more bold and then either looking for new product services, or is it that you just look at new territories? I'd be interested in your viewpoint on that.
I think we have to have our ears out, and we have to look at what is it that we are good at.
Yeah.
What is it that we are already driving value, our unique proposition, and we need to look at beyond the the how we do that to the heart of the why. To Simon Sinek's golden circles, I'm quite a big believer in that. We might have been really excellent, for example, at compliance training in a particular field, but the reason we were excellent was actually our approach to how that experience is done, and how can we extend that out into the skills that are actually needed in businesses and organizations today. So I think that's one of the things that we need to be looking at. I don't think we can rest on what we've done in the past, but when we've been successful, really distilling down where we've created value and why we've created that value, I think is a really significant thing. So many different examples of industries that have had to have gone under. You've got the old Kodaks and all that, Nokias and all of that kind of thing, because I didn't actually think about why we're good at what we do. And for me, as learning and development and providers, we are there to ensure that others are equipped and ready. Now, we may have done that in a particular way in the past, and it brought some of our unique flavor to that, our experience and our insight, our technologies, but we may need to redefine what it means to help others be equipped and ready, and how we leverage our core essential skills in a new world of work. And that means we have to continually tune in to what's going on in the marketplace, the bigger trends, as well as the very specific things that we can do as learning professionals.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Lorraine, just thinking about it from that same point of view as well, around that, the influencing that's coming into this as well, from your perspective and your experiences on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Laura's saying in terms of keeping in touch and listening, but I see also Dermot said value is what the customer says it is. How do we keep in touch with what the customer now values? And for me, in terms of getting new customers and understanding what a new customer is going to look like in this marketplace right now, I think it's beyond your traditional heads of learning and development as well. I think there's going to be new people coming in that want some learning, and they want it in a slightly different way. But absolutely, it's about listening out for what is it that the customer now values. And again, that's, as Laura said, it's keeping in touch with market trends. LinkedIn and other social networks are your friend, but it's also thinking a little bit wider. And for me, what's most important is regular contact with my existing customers to really test out what I'm hearing versus what is actually going on for them. And if I can do that, then I can start to think about, so what does that mean in terms of my why and my personal approach to how I deliver learning and development. And I absolutely agree that value is what the customer says it is. I've got so many examples of where I working as a vendor, going to talk to clients, and I can come up with an amazing blended learning journey that's got everything that they've said they wanted. But then when you actually talk to them about what is going to drive value, how are you going to deem whether this is a success or not, it often comes down to something much more basic than, the journey, keeping the learners involved. For a lot of people, that's kind of like a byproduct. Actually, what we want to make sure is we're reducing costs, or we've got X thousand of people that we need to get through a program because we've committed to Y, and we just need you to help us do that. So sometimes it's about balancing our own why with the customer's why and coming up with something that works.
Perfect. Yeah. Stuart, in the chat, you've posed a question in some respects. Could you perhaps come off mic and just take that question to the floor, please?
I think people want to measure value, and productivity seems to be a key concept. I just wonder if it's the overarching concept, or if there are better concepts than productivity.
Mm-hmm. So, Lorraine, do you want to follow on with that question? If you've got any sort of thoughts around that at all?
Sure. I mean, in my experience, often what happens with productivity is there's a large conversation around, but how we're going to determine whether that specific intervention or piece of learning has actually impacted productivity, or is it part of the answer? And so I think, as well as productivity, for some clients, added value is, it could be a sense of team, or it could be the team are now doing something slightly differently, which is saving us a little bit of time, or whatever it might be. I think, productivity, absolutely, people want their teams and their businesses to be more productive. Mm-hmm. How they actually measure that, how they get to that, I think can be can come in so many different ways. And I don't think it's an excuse to say that a learning intervention can't always be the only measure of productivity.
Interesting. Laura, just on the same point, where do you think the value comes in? Is it the fact of, we talk about productivity, that's basically like an outcome, but where do you see value in the whole proposition, and where does it start?
Well, I think I'm in agreement as well with I think it was Stuart about the whole focus on what does a customer value. I've been looking at the whole concept of value for a very, very long time now. And one of the things that I created for me was this concept of the value spectrum, as where do learning leaders and where do we as learning providers see our value. So when you ask people, what is it that how would you describe value? If you've won an award, what would you think that you will be winning your award for? And at the learning value end, it's very important that a lot of learning professionals see their learning value as have people happy? Have they had a great experience? Have we been able to deliver more learning to more people for less money? And it's all, in one sense, it's all about how good am I as a learning professional. On the other end is the business value end, which, Stuart, to your point of productivity, but it's also about performance, how the extent to which they'll be able to do a task better, do more sales, more employee retention, better, reduced attrition rates, even sometimes culture and innovation. They're the sorts of things that the business are talking about. And where our customers see themselves, are they facing learning value or are they facing business value? It's important for us to understand that. The challenge is, if they're facing learning value and they want more people at a less cost, they're under pressure for cost. They'll put you under pressure for cost. And it's very difficult to be able to say, well, actually, the business value is what is important. How their organization sees value is also critical. So it's almost like a grid. So if their business sees them as a cost center and they see themselves as learning value, they're in a real danger zone. They're going to be very difficult customers for you to be able to work with. But equally, if the business is asking just for more courses and you're able to give more courses, you're all working in the learning value area, it's good for short-term revenue, but it's not good for long-term revenue because they're under threat and you're under threat. And I think the more interesting side is for us to work on the business value end. So even if our customers are asking for more courses and less money, yes, we have to give them that. But how do we take them on a journey in?
Laura, you just muted yourself. So if you could just come back on, it'd be brilliant.
Clearly, I wasn't that interesting.
Well, I thought it was a test to make sure I was still listening to you. So
basically, what I'm saying is our customers might say, I want to have less money, and pay less money for our programs. I need just some more content. But actually, what we do to drive them into so little seeds of what it could look like to drive business value, to go those steps further that Lorraine was asking about why are you doing this, why, and so that we're gradually pulling them into the business value end, because if we only meet them at their value point, we're all going to go under. Whereas if some of our customers want to drive more value, but their business doesn't see them in that way. So how do we partner with them to be able to deliver more for them in that space? So I hope that makes sense. But it's like a grid of how we see value and how our customers see value, and internally how we're perceived as well.
Yeah. I see a couple of hands come up, and ladies first, if that's okay, on that, Jan. Lorraine?
I shall lower my hand. Thank you. I was just listening to what Laura was saying, and one of my main reactions there is what I have started to do more and more is not just take my customer's word as the gospel. And I've spoken to the people who are going to be in the program. I've spoken to clients of my customer, whether that's internal stakeholders or other people, to really start to say, I've heard what it is that you're trying to achieve. Now let's test actually what is needed. Is this what's needed, or is it to get to what you want? It might be a slightly different piece of work or something else. And sometimes it may not be learning that's required to get to what you want. And so for me, in terms of strategy and delivering value. It's about trying to get that wider picture, a little bit of consultancy where you are able to do it. And I think where you're not able to do it, be very, very clear in your scope of work about what you have been able to, the information you've been able to get.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you very much. Jan, you had your hand up as well, sorry.
Thank you. To build upon that, I think there is an order in which to do these things, because we saw three things. One is if you have more data, impact data, for example, then you can as a trainer, you can go back to your customer with that data, pre-training, post-training. What did people learn? What was the business impact? That data collection that will enable you to go back to your customer and build a longer term relationship with that customer. That means that you can do more in partnership with that customer instead of having what is quite often a transactional relationship with them. Once you receive that partnership and collaboration with your customer, you can then start to do more on the innovation side. Because innovation is driven by data, it's driven by good relationships with your customers, but also with other industry partners. For example, you might want to partner as a training company that delivers financial compliance. You might want to partner with other training providers that do more on the soft skills, for example. There are lots of different examples of how people innovate. Completely out of the box here. I was looking at champagne producers. Very different topic. But champagne producers at the moment are very much partnering with designers, rock stars. I was looking at cognac producers. They are setting up partnerships with rock stars and selling their product that way. Completely different, but very innovative partnerships that you can see all kinds of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Andrea, you obviously posed a question. I just wondered, have you got a real life experience that you're talking about there? Is it possible you can just bring that one to life for us?
I can give you a recent experience. We're dealing with a senior leadership team in a financial services company, and the chief executive, whom I've known for quite a while and who was actually an individual coachee of mine some years back, he said that he needed his team to work much more effectively together, and he wasn't sure that the senior team were in the right position. So we talked this through. And then when I talked to the senior team, they said, actually, it's not really our problem. We understand each other very well. And we've done a couple of psychometrics, and we know our profiles, thanks to some of the work that you did with us earlier. It's our chief executive who's the problem. Because he doesn't know how to assess the effectiveness of us working together in both a very concrete numbers outcome point of view, but also in soft skills. So we don't lose time in conflict. We can see each other's perspectives and so on. And I saw somebody saying, well, content is king. There was one of our group here. It's disappeared from my screen, which I would thoroughly disagree with, because I think inquiry is king. And so it's inquiring and being able to listen and then put forward, your thinking and check that out with whoever the target learning audience are.
Okay, no, thank you, Andrew, for bringing that to life. Lorraine, have you got any thoughts on that at all?
I do. I've got some interesting examples as well. I once was employed to work with a very senior person within an investment bank, and the reasons that I was given to work with them was that they weren't able to deliver what they should be delivering, that they needed some coaching and they needed some one-on-one training in certain subjects. And actually, when I started working with this individual, the only issue that came up was that they didn't know how to tell their PA that their PA couldn't manage their time properly, and therefore the PA was getting things completely wrong in their diary, was sending them off to the wrong country, not just the wrong meeting, and so on. And so actually sometimes they don't know what they don't know, I would say, or they tell you that it's one thing, but it's actually, you find out it's another. But I think sometimes they genuinely believe that this is the issue, and it's only by doing some of that work that you then find out what is going on. So absolutely, I agree that inquiry is important. However, to Peter's point about content, I think if you don't have content behind you, once you've then done the inquiry, you need to be able to bring in the relevant information, but in a way that doesn't, I don't know if it's upset your customer, but make sure that you're still being able to manage stakeholders appropriately. And at the end of the day, for me, I think it's about getting the desired outcome, even if it means sometimes changing tack. And I think that goes back to Laura's point about learning value versus business value. Sometimes we have to start with the learning, but we may end up with the business because people don't actually understand what that business value is until you're in the process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I must say I had some interesting viewpoints as well. Sometimes I think our role is, I think when we have a customer, we have stakeholders and have the aspiration is part of what we need to do. Obviously, the analytical approach to it, but I think we also need to really test and measure their thoughts, their ambitions, because I it's like I'm sure we've been in a situation, Paul, we're seeing this lovely great thing that has been out in the L&D world. We need to have this. And actually to be strong enough to actually say, why do you need this? What is the impact of your business? Where is the value? But yeah, but it's the latest thing. And sometimes it's good to be strong and actually challenge what they believe is their value. And because, as we talked about, I think that's when it switches into that business value element to it, because if we just sell them short, should we say, for a better phrase, no one wins. But basically, if we can create that whole eco approach, actually, that and we know that also there's another point that it's never going to be 100%. But what we need to do is take them on that direction that is going to be positive for them, that is going to be true to them as well. When we talk about authenticity as well, I think it's really good. I think I'm just conscious of time and everything like that. But Dermot, you had obviously some chat in there. Do you want to bring some of your comments to life actually in the discussion here, Dermot?
Yeah, I can do. I suppose one of the things, I'm kind of new to this compared to everybody else. I've been around a long time, but I just haven't been a trainer or a professional trainer, let's say, a long time. And one of the things that I suppose I struggle with a small bit is understanding what it is that the customer actually wants. Now, I have met more customers who don't know which end of them is up than I unfortunately should have. Sometimes you have to sort of take them on a sort of a journey just to get them to where they should have been at the start. But one of the things that I'm sort of core in my side of work is problem solving. And one of the things we're constantly working with people is to actually forget coming up with a solution. Take the time at the start to actually define the problem correctly, so that you're actually fixing what you need to fix. And there was one of the old, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but yeah, the adage was that a problem well defined is a problem half solved, because we've already got rid of all the junk out of the way. We're now focusing in on what we need to focus in on. And it seems to me that part of this is actually sitting down with the customer and listening and just sort of saying, what is it that you actually want? I'm conscious I've worked with an awful lot of smaller companies. So they're not going to have the data. They're not going to have the numbers to get the nice ROIs and all of these kind of things. So how do we get some kind of feedback from them in terms of whether or not we're being effective, and struggle a small bit with that. I think part of it is that if we get, I had one customer say to me, he says, I hear you in the business more often than not. And I kind of looked at him. I said, what do you mean by that? I said, I hear your language. People are using your language now in terms of describing things through the business. So he says, you're obviously doing something right. But how do you measure that? Good Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, to say,
yeah, the very interesting point. And I think the discussion around the value and some of the points I was just seeing in the chat as well is defining the value, but also how do you measure the value? that has got mutual agreement with the stakeholders and the proposition. So what I'm just thinking about here as well, Lorraine and Laura as well, if there's some, you can obviously give people some nuggets of information just on this whole value element. What would you say is probably a key thing for business owners to look at from a value perspective in just a short summary?
For me, I would say that what your customers want isn't all, I'm so in agreement with Andrea, what your customers want isn't always what they need, but it is their starting point.
Yep.
So we need to start where they are. And to Andrea about how do we deal with those customers when they think they know what they want. For me, what was always powerful was having independent evidence to say, yes, and yes, I hear what you're saying. And have you seen this study or this piece of work that might help us to get there closely? Or yes, and how do we, to Dermot's point, redefine what that actually means to the different stakeholders here? Being a curious conversation, I think, would be a really practical piece of advice. And, you know, one of the things that we're going to be doing at the Business of Training Conference is to look at the evidence, for example, from learning science that we can bring to those conversations to shift the value proposition, but also to Dermot's point and to Peter talking about content, we can put so much in, but how the learning gets used is a really critical aspect of our value. And it's something that I don't think we spent enough time on because, you know, we're there to deliver a course. So again, it's something covering at the Business of Training Conference. We're going to be looking at learning transfer because Dermot, it's those questions that we ask afterwards, and you know, to the extent to which we encourage people when they're in our control, in inverted commas, to be able to think about how they might apply that and what would that look like. And those kind of conversations we can start to capture. It might not be very easy to do, but with technology and with AI, we can capture more of those conversations about people's intent and then work out systems to help our organizations and our customers to follow that up. So a few really practical things in there: the role of evidence, the role of how we learn and how we use that evidence, the role of how we question and support people after the program. These are really pragmatic ways of driving value, and they're all ways that we're going to be digging into more at the Business of Training Conference.
Laura, fantastic. I was really listening into that. I've got so many other ideas, but I'm just conscious of time. Lorraine, just for yourself, what sort of nuggets would you like to sort of pass and share today?
So I'm not going to go over what Laura said because I agree with everything. One thing I would add is leadership ability to role model whatever it is that you're trying to do, and making sure you have that buy-in from the top, because so many times if you haven't got leadership buy-in, you can do the most amazing thing and it will fall flat if it then isn't followed through. And the best programs that I have worked on in my career are the ones where I answer 3 very simple questions, or I try and do that, which is, where is it that you want to get to? Where are you right now? And let's figure out some ways of how you are going to get from point A to point Z, or wherever it might be. And for me, there's a whole load of consultancy questions that you can ask, to Dermot's point about problem solving, to Laura's point about yes and, but really delving into what it is that you want to achieve, what's going to be different, why do you want to achieve that, and then really doing your evidence base, where are we now? And I think many programs, you don't deliver the expected value because you haven't done that first piece of analysis and that first piece of evaluation before you even get into design or delivery.
Thank you very much. You mentioned about going to the top. I just want to go to the top here. Jan, would you like to have got any closing statements from your perspective?
A closing statement on the screen, if you can all see that.
Yeah.
The Business of Conference has been mentioned a few times. This is a good atmospheric impression from last time. This is our speaker lineup that we have for you. You can see Laura there, by the way, and many other people that are joining us. It's 23 October. As a reward for people that have attended today's session, if you take this, we give you a 20% discount to this conference. as a reward for joining our webinar, this is only valid till this Friday. So it's a time-limited offer. So I'll leave it on the screen so you can scan the, what's it called? It's called a QR code. What we will do is for everybody who joined today, registered, not just registered, but actually attended today, we will send you this in an email as well. So you get this. It's only valid till Friday, as mentioned. So take your opportunity.
Thank you very much, Jan. I would like to just take this opportunity to thank yourself, Jan, as a sponsor, to our fantastic guests today, Laura and Lorraine. I think it's been insightful conversation. I've got so many ideas I want to talk to you about later as well, because I think we're all passionate about doing the right things and making the impact, but also the fact of creating that value. I think that's really important for us when we're on our mission in some respects. How do we create that value? So thank you so much for your interactions, sharing of thoughts in the chat. For me, I think the next point here is I believe in meeting people. So if anyone is interested in taking up Jan's offer, it'd be great to meet everybody in London at the venue. The venue is awesome. It's got amazing history. I won't spoil anything in case I know where Jan normally goes with this. But if you have the opportunity and want to meet other like-minded individuals that are passionate about training, passionate about values, and very much around the impact of what we do, then we would love to see you in London on that date. Other than that, this is recorded. The notes will be shared. Thank you so much and enjoy the remainder of the week. Thank you so much.